Hey guys, this is Bryn Bach Model Railway and welcome to the first layout update for the YouTube channel. Now, the topic for this video is pretty much just going to be a layout tool to show you guys all the different areas, all the way the different tracks work, describe briefly how all the points and everything like that works as well, and then also just per area describe the future plans and future ambitions for the layout. It'll also help a few of you guys who have come over from Instagram just to see where each of the different areas of the photos actually line up in regards to everything else with the layout, because I know it's not the easiest to tell if you haven't seen a wider picture. So hopefully this video will help you there. I do hope to get out a running session for you guys as well. Somewhere between Christmas and New Year's is where I'm aiming, but I am going to be quite busy with work during that period. So if it's a couple of weeks late, I do apologise, but I can only do so much. Before I get any further into the video, I do want to quickly put out a disclaimer for anyone expecting a load of scenery, because the area you're looking at now is the most scenically advanced area on the layout, and as you can see, it's nowhere near finished. I've pretty much been focusing on getting to a point where I have baseboard, track and cork all complete. Any scenery then is pretty much going to be the future goals for this video, purely because it's my first time doing proper scenery and I want to document it as much as I can so I can look back, see exactly how I did it, see what I can do better and areas to improve, etc, etc. On that note though, there are a few areas where there are scenery. Like you can see in front, you have got the station, pretty much all the buffers and stuff like that are in, and the heritage line does have a few more bits like signal boxes or signals. Some of them are just placeholders, some of them are the right thing but they're not fully assembled or fully painted. You get the idea, it's very work in progress, but hopefully it is enough for you to see where things are going to go. I also want to say before we crack any further is, if you have any comments or questions or just want to say anything about the layout or video at all, please do use the comment section down below, and as soon as I get to the next layout update, I will try to answer and cover as many of those comments and questions as I possibly can. On that note as well, if you want to see more of this layout and more of where it's going, please do consider subscribing. Absolutely free, there's no cost or anything like that. All you need is a YouTube account, and then just click the big red button under the video. If you want notifications when the videos come out as well, just hit the little bell icon next to it. So, first topic for the video then, only appropriate that the first thing we talk about is the era and the region of the layout. So we'll get this 158 out the station and then we'll start talking about that. So what is the era and region for the railway? Well, as some of you may have guessed, just going off the name and rolling stock, it is pretty much a Welsh-based layout. So there's going to be a lot of Arriva, a lot of transport for Wales. It's going to be quite Welsh. But on top of that, I'm not really restricting myself as to north or south or anything like that. I'm just going off the the brief of somewhere that Transport for Wales or Arriva Trains Wales have operated between the times of 2015 to 2025. The reason it's quite a large period of time is just because there's so much changeover that's happened. Pretty much every operator apart from Cross Country has done a new livery or completely rebranded or something like that. So it just allows me to model so much more but still keep myself somewhat restricted as well. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I want to keep a nice large area. Half of it is just because I really like the Avanti West Coast and Transpennine liveries, but also GWR, so this was the easiest way to allow me to model all of them, but not together, but still have them all on the layout, if that makes any sense to any of you guys. But also because I want to get into 3D printing my own models, and I really like the newer stuff, particularly that's coming out with Northern, such as the 195s, Transport for Wales and the 197s, or the 730s, and that sort of stuff coming to the railways, and this was the easiest way to include all that. It also allows me for any exhibition layouts I build in future. When I take them to different areas, I can sort of tailor the rolling stock to that area so local people seem a bit more interested because it's what they see on the actual tracks. Now, there is a caveat to all that, and that's the heritage line, which is pretty much just my excuse to run what I want when I want to run it. There's no specific region or requirements for something to run on the heritage line. It's literally just, if I see something that doesn't fit the main line and it could work on the heritage line, it goes on the heritage line. So you do get a lot of weird examples like P2 in front here. This is going to be based on the heritage line. There's also a W1, a GT3, an APTE, but there's also a lot more, much more normal stock to sort of balance it all out. As for scenery wise, I'm mainly going to base that on South Wales, or for the heritage line GWR, just because I think that makes the most sense to me, as that's the stock that will be out on the layout most of the time. So I think the next part of this update, we should probably talk about the station area. So we'll have another train or two go past, and then we'll crack on with that. Now, as you can see, Bryn Bach has a decently large station area. Now, it's got 6 platforms, which are numbered from the wall on your left hand side to the bay platforms on your right hand side, going from 1 to 6. So for example, the 800 is currently in platform 2, the 158 is currently in platform 5. Now you can also just about see on the far right the tender for the P2 that we were just looking at. And that is sort of a loco / unit storage area. Now it's pretty much for rail tours or stuff like that, so loco can be kept somewhere close to the station, but not taking up too much room in the TMD area, which you can just about see on the left, but we'll come back to that after. Now, I'm going to split this first bit into sort of 2 parts. So this bit is going to be talking more about the track work, which there's not much to cover, but as you can see, going through all this point work, every single track comes onto the main line that the IET, this Class 800, has come off, which also allows anything from the TMD loop to access any platform. The other side, however, you've pretty much just got your standard, your up line comes into 3 and 4, your down line goes to 1 and 2. However, you can come up, come in towards the camera and go into platform 1 as well, so trains can run around without them to block the main lines. Now, platforms 1 and 2 can take a full length train that I'm able to run on the layout, which is pretty much around about 5 coaches. Platforms 3 and 4, just because of how the underneath area is designed in the far back, can't quite accommodate that. You can get away with 4 coaches in platform 3, it's pretty much just units then for passing trains in platform 4, but as far as just a train stopping and continuing, it's fine. It doesn't really make a difference because you can't see underneath that board at the back anyway. Platforms 5 and 6 then, they've pretty much been designed to try and cope with a 4-car flirt unit, as I'm anticipating Hornby eventually doing the Transport for Wales versions in future, which, talking about at shows, they do seem quite keen to do, so fingers crossed for that. The loco store then on the side as well, that is long enough for either a 3-coach unit, not quite long enough for a flirt, but as the flirt's a mainline, I don't really need them in there. But for more branch line units like a 3-car 170 or 197, etc., they should fit in that storage side and fine, or I could have 3 different locos or something like that. Now, we're going to quickly jump over to the other side, so you guys will be able to see, looking the opposite way, looking at the junction that's currently right at the front of the camera. I'm going to talk about more of the station building and plans for that. So, hopefully then, from this angle, you can get a much better view at that top junction, just to see sort of all how the tracks come together. You can also see a bit more clearly now that the 3rd track that goes around the corner on the far right hand side, for all the points, has access to every single track, just purely because that's my access point for the TMD and also the storage yard. But again, we'll get to those later. the reason why I brought you over here is more to talk about the scenery for this station area. So obviously the two big gaps between the tracks here, between platforms 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, they're also going to be platforms just like 5 and 6, which is just poking out on the far left hand side. Now there'll be a lot of S&C scenery, so signalling and crossings, or switching crossings even, but I'm not going to go too in depth into that for this video, just because I myself need to research how I'm going to do that realistically. I mainly wanted to talk to you though about the station building. Now the station building is pretty much going to be from right in front of where you're looking by here. Now the plan for it is to sort of have the main station entrance as a flat front by here, with a nice big arch that comes out, overhangs over the railway and back in, so with a glass overlook area so you can look over the railway, but that's going to be the main plaza with your ticket offices, your gate line, all that sort of stuff. There'll then be footbridges that go down to the platform, as well as utilising the posts you might have seen earlier that hold up this board you're currently sat on top. I'm going to disguise them as lift shafts, so there's an excuse for them to go through the platform. Now, one bit I'm not 100% sure on, so I think I'd really appreciate your guys' opinion on this. Currently, I'm not planning to have a canopy extend out the length of the platforms, just because I like the fact it's quite open, and given that half the station is underneath hidden away anyway, I'm not sure how realistic it would be. But if you guys think I should have one, or have like a half length one or something like that, please do let me know, as it would be greatly appreciated. Again, any questions for this area? I know it's been quite brief, but that's just because there's not really a lot to talk about here. Any questions, drop them down below. I'll cover them in the next update. For now though, as you can see it on your right hand side anyway, we're going to move over and talk about the TMD area of the layout, but I think we should get another train moving first. So, now that the 158s have departed and gone somewhere down the tracks on the main line, we've got another view overlooking the top of the depot. Now I have had to zoom out slightly for this shot, just because the depot was so long I physically can't fit it all in with the zoom level I was using. So apologies if the quality has changed slightly. Now, as you can see, there are about 6 tracks right at that top end, and 3 tracks right at this front end. So there is a fair bit of storage in here. Two of these tracks at the front end, namely where the 150 and 170 are, and the track where the 158s just departed from, are both long enough to hold 4 Mark IIIs, again mainly with the aim of holding a 4-car Stadler unit. That's pretty much the longest unit I'm going to have, or longest individual unit, so if these sidings can hold them, then I've got no worries about storage. The track on the right of the 150, that's currently empty, that is a head shunt to get up into the back set of 3 sidings at the top, or any of the other sidings, purely because of where the entry is. You'd have to come in and reverse back. So that's sort of a separate siding on its own, it's just a little head shunt. Now, as you can see, where the 3 sidings are close together, again, each of those is long enough for roughly 3 Mark IIIs, so it's a 158 and a 153, or 150, 153, a couple of pacers, something like that. enough variety so I can shuffle units around, but also enough length that I can get quite a lot in there. The track then to the left hand side, sort of on its own, that there is long enough for what will be a 230 unit, which is the first custom unit I'm trying to make. I will hopefully have a decently large progress video update for that in the new year, but currently I've only really got one coach done, so I want to get 3 coaches in it, at least up looking like a 230 ready to go in. The 2 tracks on the left then, they're just loco sidings, so either a 68 or some freight locos can go in there, or if there's a rail tour and the loco store on the side of the station is filled with a unit, the loco can go in there instead. Now, as for scenery in this area, the 3 tracks on the far back, they're going to have one big shed that they're all going to share. 2 tracks in front here are also going to be in a shed. The head shunt, however, will be outside, and the 2 loco store sidings as well as the 1 middle track, they're also all going to be outside. However, as much as that's going to leave sort of a big gap between the 3 tracks that are going to be in the shed and that 1 track on its own, the shed facility up there is sort of going to extend in the latter half out and fill the gap towards the 230 siding, just to give a bit more scenic interest. As far as scenery on the right hand side over here, this is going to be more of where the other buildings are going to go, the car park, etc. You can just about see the heritage line sneaking in on the right hand side as well. So the entrance to the car park for the TMD is going to go up a ramp and have a level crossing under the heritage line, or across the heritage line even. It's going to be roughly just before where the white post in that far corner is. So I hope that gives you a decently good idea of the TMD area as well and what the plans are for that. The only other thing I would add, which I've decided to do for both the mainline TMD and mainline storage yard, the only 2 areas that have it, but the 8 sidings here where locos or units are going to actually physically be stored and sat. So that's the 2 at the front and the 6 along the back. All have isolating switches, so I can turn those tracks on and off purely just so I can have the mainline live, keep those tracks off, because certain units like the rail track 143, just so it's hiding right at the back there, you can just about see the roof, but that unit has the interior lights, but they switch on whenever they have track power. There's no way to turn them off through the decoder, and if it's sat in the TMD doing nothing, I don't want the lights on. So that's the reason they've got isolating switches. It also just saves a bit of decoder and motor lifespan because they're not taking current when they don't need to be. So that's about it for the TMD area. I think next we should probably talk about the heritage line, and then that should pretty much cover everything this side of the layout. So I'll get something running again, and then we'll move down to the lower station right at the back and do some heritage talk. So once again, staying slightly zoomed out just because the station area down here is a little bit too big, can't quite fit it all in again. So once again, apologies if the quality is slightly lower or different. As you can see, this lovely LMS Fowler 4P has just brought a 5-coach train to the lower station. As much as it is blocking that first point slightly, there's a very specific reason why it has stopped there, which we'll cover in just a second. But this is one of those areas I was talking about earlier, where the scenery that's here is very much just a placeholder. I do want to put a signal box roughly in that position, but I'm not going to be using that signal box. And to be honest, the water tower thing is just there because I had nowhere else to put it. Now, in the big area behind the station where the coaches are, sort of roughly back by here, that area is going to be home to the station building as well as the single platform for the lower station. I don't want to go too crazy down here because it is just a small terminus. It's not the main terminus. We'll get to that later on. It does require this Fowler 4F, not 4F, 4P, running around its train and going back up the incline a little bit though. I think now's a good time to mention though as well, all the rolling stock for the Heritage Line and eventually main lines is going to be using KD couplings. Now, some of you may have pieced it together, but that is the reason why this train has stopped where it is, slightly blocking this point, because there is a magnet between where the locomotive ends and the first coach starts. So if the locomotive was to back up slightly, release the tension, it would uncouple, be able to come down the incline a touch, run around, take the train back up, and I don't have to touch any of the rolling stock. I will demonstrate that, but we'll see that when we get to the upper station in just a bit. I do quickly want to show you a slightly different angle of the Heritage Line though, just so you have more of an idea of where it's positioned, just so there's no confusion or anything. Before we do that though, as you can see, there is one track in front that continues onward. This does continue all the way around to the bridge area. Again, we'll get to that later. But there's also the TMD just on your right hand side. You can see that rail track pacer I was on about earlier. Now, the plan for this sort of void area right here as well is I want to do sort of a mini lake area. So all the gradients from all sides are going to drop down. It's just going to be a mini lake / pond. Maybe have a few industrial bits that have sort of fallen over the side or something. But I think that would just be a quite nice little bit of scenic area there. And I think it would be quite nice for the layout to go down a bit as well, and most of the rest of the scenery is going to keep going up. Anyway, we're going to move the camera quickly, just so I can show you more of the run of the Heritage Line going up over the station, just so you get a bit of a better idea of the rest of the route. So here we are again then, we're just looking back up the incline that the 4P just came down. You should just about be able to see on your right hand side, you have the other end of the TMD on the side ends. Right at the back, just about seeing the far right hand side, just about see the 800 shooting off underneath, continuing into the station. And the Heritage Line track curves around on top of that. I'm going to gently move the camera now, apologies if it's a bit shaky. But you can see the Heritage Line continues up and over. Apologies about the lighting, the sun is right looking through the window. I can't do much about that. But you can see the Heritage Line continues up and over in front of the window, which is where we're going to go now, so we can see where the rest of the line goes. So once again we have a slightly wider shot here just because it's too big, so I'm once again apologising if the quality is a bit different. Now as you can see from this area you should just about be able to see two mainline tracks hiding behind towards the window, as well as one Heritage Line track up on top. You should also be able to see in the far corner over here, you can just about see the ends of the bay platforms hiding underneath that board. So position wise, as some of you may have pieced together, the main lines after they go under that board, as much as the station looks much longer, in reality they come around a right decently tight curve. It's second and third standard radius, but it's hidden so you don't see the trains go around it, and they continue out underneath the board, behind the Heritage Line here, and then around into in front where the camera is, which I'll show you a bit later on. The Heritage Line does a similar thing, but with a much more gradual radius and out on top the station. This gives me a perfect chance now to explain the rest of Scenics, for this upper area here. So after you've had the station front, there's going to be a nice sort of park, plaza area, a few trees, fountains, something like that, up until the Heritage Line boundary. There's going to be a purely access level crossing across the railway, plus a wheelchair accessible footbridge across as well. In that back corner then, where currently there's just a load of trains that can't fit on the layout at the minute or don't have decoders, that sort of stuff, that's going to be built up town scene. So there'll be a few tall buildings, a few roads, most of the cars are going to go over there. You get the idea. Scenic wise for these two tracks, as far for the main lines, they're going to come out of a tunnel right back here. You're also going to dive into another tunnel right back here. So you're only going to see a short stint of them, but they'll be over a bridge. You also have the Heritage Line on a bridge in front, which I think is going to create quite an interesting scene there. As the trains come further up then, from pretty much this point onwards, you're only going to see the Heritage Line for a bit. And this is the area where I was talking about earlier, having the main Heritage Line station that the trains have to reverse to get back into. This far track, which you can only just about see, but goes more towards the window, that dives off into the Heritage Line storage yard. The closer track comes to the Heritage Line upper station. All this area is going to be on a proper embankment. Storage yard side will jump into a tunnel, which we will see in just a second. And the main station side is going to continue around. I think the next point we need to talk about is the main station side, and I'll try to get a nice wide angle so I can show you the main lines coming out in front as well. So we'll have another running shot because we all like running trains, and then we'll move to talking about the upper station. So once again, camera angle's a bit narrow, zoomed out a bit, same caveats apply with quality. But this is the upper Heritage Line station. This is the main focus for the Heritage Line, and I know you can only see half of it at the minute. I'll get you a better view when we turn around and look the other way towards the engine shed, but I think it's important for you to be able to see these curves down the bottom for the main line at the moment. So, we'll talk about the main line first. These two curves obviously continue around, connect to the main lines we just saw that are hiding behind the Heritage Line along the window straight. These sections, particularly right by here, are going to be in a nice rock cut-in that's going to come out to around about here, around about where the transition curve is. They're also going to dive into a tunnel about here as it goes underneath the Heritage Line. This front bit will be exposed. Then it will dive into another tunnel that you just saw the 158s come out of, but I'll talk more about that when we're looking the other way. As for the Heritage Line up on top then, we are going to have you can see the storage yard right at the back, just with a couple locos, roughly about here. Just about to see the entry for there. You won't be able to see those locos when this area is done. You will, however, see the signal box and the two signals. It's an island platform station with a footbridge at that far end, not quite as far back where the signals are, but that sort of area. That's going to go up over to where the retaining wall is. There'll be a nice station building and complex up on top of a hill, which will hide the storage yard behind. But again, a bit more about that after. The island platform then, again, it's long enough for 5 coaches when stopped. And there's some more magnets here, so the trains will stop in specific places. Where this 117 is as well, there is a crossover that is currently sat on blocking, so you can get from this inside sort of storage siding onto the closest platform track. Now, there's a few more bits to go in here, but I'm not 100% sure on how I'm going to do this area yet. The other thing I would like to point out as well, the signal box in that corner is staying, it is the right one. It's only half built at the minute though, because I can't build it any further without painting it, and I haven't decided how or what colours I'm going to paint it just yet, but it gives a nice bit of representation. So let's spin this camera around to face the other way and I'll show you the rest of the upper station and the engine shed. So now that we're looking the other way, there's a few more things you can see. First of all is the engine shed up on top. It's a 2-track engine shed. It's long enough for about a full-length loco like a 37 just outside, and a shorter loco like the 15XX or Class 08 to sit in front of it and still have all the points in front clear. You can also see, again like the lower station, you can just about see that where the 4F is sat, not 4F, sorry, where the 4P is sat, it is just about blocking a set of points. But again, there's a magnet there, so it would uncouple from its train without me having to touch it, move off into the head shunt and run around again. The other part you can see here is the main lines again. And this is the other part of that curve that continues along, and you'll go into a tunnel about here and you won't see any further. You can also just about get a sneaky look at the mainline storage yard, which again we'll cover at a later date. And you can't quite see it, but just behind the retaining wall is the heritage line storage yard, which again we'll come around and cover in just a minute. Now, just about on the far right hand side you can see the bridge section, which is going to be the next topic for the next focus of the video. There are some Mark IIs currently sat on it. They're not staying in place. I've just been testing with them for making sure I've got length in all the sidings and laybys on the heritage line for the forthcoming Acura scale Mark IIs. Those ones will be going shortly, but I just haven't put them away just yet. So that's why they're sat on the bridge. But let's go get a closer look at them now. Just a quick one before we look at the bridge. I'm apologising here because I'm using the camera handheld, so it might be a bit more shaky than the other shots that have been on the tripod. However, I thought I'd just give you a bit of a closer look at all the point work here. So as you can see, the inside platform track, just the other side of this 117, fans out into 4. There's 2 head shunts and 2 engine shed tracks. This outside track joins up to where the 117 was. As before, there is a crossover roughly about here underneath the 117, which is so the 117 can get in. However, locos and stuff can also dive up to the engine shed area and get out without needing the 117 to move. Just gives a bit more flexibility, but now let's go have a quick look at that bridge. So once again, apologies for this shot being a bit shaky. I've had to go handheld again just to get everything in. But this is the bridge area. As you can see, the Mark IIs I was on about earlier hiding there as well. I do want to quickly apologise as well for the lights on that Mark IV DVT. Just need to do a bit of track cleaning, pickup cleaning and wheel cleaning. Just haven't got around to it yet. Now that we've panned around though, it does give me the perfect opportunity to show you the station area leading into the TMD and the two main lines. You get the third track with the TMD loop. Keeps coming around, Heritage Line joins on to make it 4 tracks as you enter onto the bridge. 2 mainline tracks continue around, keep going to Snakein S section underneath the Heritage Line upper station. As you would have noticed passing around, you have the TMD loop and Heritage Line which to go into a double slip. The other end of this double slip feeds across back onto the main lines. There's also a sneaky hidden crossover back there so you can get to either directional track. The other access goes off into the hidden storage yard underneath the Heritage Line. Now I'm going to move to the side for you to get a better view of this, but there are 10 tracks underneath there, each long enough for an IET to fit the full length and be far enough back that another IET wouldn't hit it coming in. I've used the Class 800s for that just because they're my longest item of rolling stock. You can also see directly on top you've got the Heritage Line upper station and the Heritage Line storage yard, which is the last topic we're going to cover in a second. Like I did mention briefly before with the TMD though, all the mainline storage yard tracks are individually isolated and have their own switches for when they're on and off. Same reasons for the TMD area with that. So let's get one more running shot squeezed in I think, and then we'll talk about the upper mainline storage yard. So once again, apologies if the camera is a bit shaky, having to go handheld again just to show you this area a bit better. But the last layout area I want to talk about today is the upper Heritage Line storage yard around the back there. As I said in an earlier clip, it branches off from the other heritage route right by here, heads off around the back and will head into a tunnel roughly about by here. Now, this is meant to be the main route for the Heritage Line. Theoretically would continue, say, another 5-10 miles, who knows. But enough of an excuse that you'd have a different train come out the tunnel to the one that just went in. This upper station is just a little branch line off, that's all really. It's just more room to build a station here than down the bottom. So that was just a runaround in olden days. They've put a station there just because it was convenient. As for the storage yard then, as you can see we have 3 loco storage tracks here just so I can swap the locos a bit more easily. However, the main storage yard fans off into 5 tracks that run the full length of the board. If we go down this end, you can see there are 5 nice and long tracks, long enough for roughly 5 coaches and a loco each end, give or take. You can also see we have uncoupling magnets along roughly where this wall connection is on the retaining wall. Eventually there'll be a lot longer strip so I have more flexibility, but that's all I've got in place for now. This is just so, as you can see the Merchant Navy there, say that's brought in the Mark 1 coaches, it can stop on the magnet, push back against the Mark 1s and then continue coming back towards the end of the yard, and it will uncouple leaving the Mark 1s there. That then allows either the Western or Manor to head out of its siding onto the shared curve at the top, back up onto the Mark 1s, take them out down the line. You get a loco swap, it's all nice and hidden, it's all nice and discreet, and you get a bit more variety running along the line. Now, what I would like to point out as well, the main line will also use this system with magnets, but it'll operate slightly differently. Rather than the loco from the adjacent side in, coming out and taking another train back, instead for the main line, the loco will come from the TMD or loco store area, so if that's a bit quick, but from over here, we'll run onto the front of the train in the main storage yard siding, take it out, and then the loco at the end will run light loco to the TMD or loco store area. The train with that freight train then would then run around somewhere on the layout, probably around the TMD loop, and then can take its train back in. Just gives a bit more variety, a bit more interesting movements that way. So I think it's time for one very last closing shot. We'll talk a little bit about, one very last transition shot. We'll talk a little bit about control and how I motorise the points and stuff like that, as well as a few future plans, and then we'll close the video out. So there's just one more thing to talk about, and that is, like I said before, the control and servos and future plans electrically for the layout. Now, as you can see just in the front of the shot here, controller wise I'm currently using a Gaugemaster Prodigy Express 2. I also have a Gaugemaster Combi here just on the side for DC running. There's going to be a few switches, and I did forget to mention, but just on the side here, excuse the empty glass, we do have a programming / test track just in front of the window straights. That track can be swapped from DC to DCC. I'm also going to have a few more options as to whether I have it running or programming track, but I haven't wired them up just yet. As for servos, as for the points, sorry, I just let it slip, they're all controlled by servos. I'm not going to show you underneath the boards because, as you can probably tell for the few sneak peeks you've got, it's quite messy, but it does allow me to have a nice big track plan using JMRI on my computer. Now I've got the full track plan on there. It's not technically fully accurate as to what it should be, but it's close enough. You can get an idea of where all the tracks go, how it all looks, and hopefully that quick scroll through has given you a better idea of everything. As you can see, you've got the TMD up here, the main station area over here, the bold lines are the main lines, heritage line up around the top, down the side, and then as you come down, you've got the main storage yard, heritage storage yard, as well as the heritage upper station, and those 3 little extra tracks. So you might just notice as well, I also have a little webcam set up here, just so I can see where I've got to stop the trains on the main lines. I'll also have one for the heritage line at various points, so I can fully scenic over the top, not have to have any weird open gaps. The other advantage then of having this big track plan up on the screen, as much as making me feel like I'm a proper signaller operating the real railway, eventually all the signals will run off of this screen as well. That'll be for initially manual operation for both the main line and the heritage line. Eventually though, everything is going to be wired up with block detection. So JMRI can do the signals completely automatically for me. We'll even be able to set the routes, and I'll just drive the train following what signals the train would actually see. In future, I'm debating going with full automation, which will mean I need a way for JMRI to drive the trains. If I do that, it also means I can drive the trains from my phone. But we'll cross that bridge at another day when we come to it. That's about all the topics I wanted to cover for today then. So I've said it a few times, but I mean at this time we'll get 1 second to last train running now. We'll have a little closing shot and then we'll have the outro with the final train. So we'll get to that in a second, but I do apologise for this shot being really shaky. So that is going to be everything for today's little layout tour update then. I do really hope you've enjoyed and had a really good look at everything there is at this layout, and you've got a pretty good idea now of where all the scenery items and how it's going to look in the long term and where stuff's going. If you did enjoy it, once again, please do subscribe down below. It's completely free, doesn't charge you anything, you just need a YouTube account. It's just an easier way to keep up with all your favourite YouTubers, that's all. If you do subscribe and you want a notification when you get any new videos, just hit the little bell icon next to the button and it will give you a little alert every time I post something. Once again, any questions or comments or just anything extra you'd like to know, just leave them down in the comment box. I'll try cover as many of them as possible in the next layout update. But as for that, that's everything I've got to show you guys today. Like I said before, we'll try get a running session out between Christmas and New Year, but I will be busy with work, so it might be a week or so later. But once again, do hope you've enjoyed this video though, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.